Yeah, hi everybody. First question, wait, I'm going to start with a question. Otherwise, who's been listening to our new Pi podcasts already a little bit? Well, there's good. So then the talk is not going to be boring. You're going to all learn something new today. We were worried that everybody has listened to the podcast already. Okay, so, but then the next question, do you like listening to podcasts? Cool. So you are not alone. Apparently there's like another 464 million people out there who listen to podcasts. And then the question is, do you have any favorite Python podcasts? Yeah? Any other Python? Okay. So we've noticed in general that there are a lot of places where diversity and inclusion in Python is explicitly on the agenda, right? So, for example, this conference, you probably noticed already the nice PyLadies corner, and we always get free tickets for PyLadies so that we have more diverse people joining the conference. At the PyCon US, there's the Charlas and other PyLadies dedicated events. We have dedicated communities like PyLadies, Django Girls, Django Note, and then all sorts of work groups. DISC from Non-Focus or Diversity and Inclusion Work Group from the PSF. But the Python podcast scene, like the Python podcasts out there haven't really kept up with the times. We actually realized that the Python podcast space is kind of male-dominated, which is fine. I mean, theoretically, I guess there are no women developers out there, right? Okay, well, that's not true, but this is what we did. So Marietta actually built up this data set that you have access to. So we look for Python podcast keywords and came up with the top 3 that have more than 100 episodes. So we got the Real Python, Python Bytes, and Talk Python to Me. And we noticed that out of 606, yeah, I know, devil's numbers. Out of 666 episodes, only 111 were featuring women. That's like 17.56%. We love accuracy. I'm a data scientist. Anyways, so you can access the data set on the data set here, maintained by Simon Willison. And so this is a problem. Why is this a problem? According to a study done by Paramount, the movies, right? Where, what do you see on TV and how do you feel about that? Apparently, poor representation has quite deep effects. 40% of the responders said that their self-esteem and their confidence gets affected, their sense of belonging, and their opportunities, the feeling that they have or not have opportunities in life. And if this is happening with what you see on TV, where maybe it starts to be a little bit more diverse these days, this is also happening in the workforce. Every time you apply to go and work at a company, you look at the website, who's working there. If you don't see yourself on that website a little bit, would you want to be the first one? The pioneer of being the first woman in tech, the pioneer of being the first person of color in tech at your company. It's not a lot of fun to be the first one at something, diversity and inclusion. So why is this happening? Are we lacking great women in the community? I mean, there's some here, right? Or where are the female voices? So we have, if we look at PyCon US, over the years, so since 2011, for example, to 2016, we got from 1% women speakers at PyCon US to 40% women speakers. It was possible, right? With a little bit of, as I said, explicit effort. So everybody knows diversity and inclusion does not really happen organically. It happens with work that the organizers of anything have to put in. At PyCon DE, you heard earlier on stage, we have underrepresented, so speakers from underrepresented groups, 20%, and non-male, 24%. That is still room for improvement, because that is still a little bit almost at the same average as what is out there as how many people that are non-white men are in tech. So, and the idea is that if you go to a conference and you have an event, you want to see more, because these events We want them to show examples that it can be different. I hope you all noticed the new PyLadies corner, which this year is amazing. You can see it from outside. Everybody from outside thinks this is a PyLadies conference. Yay! That's how you do it. It's called fake it till you make it. We start like that. So we have over 250 chapters in PyLadies. That means, like, even if you take one woman from every chapter, that's like way more than how many women were ever invited on PyLadies on Python podcasts, right? So it's not, you know, there's like, if there's a will, there's a way style, so it is possible. So who we are, so I'm Tereza Iofciu. Here we have Cheuk. We are the PyPodcats. Mariada and Georgie are somewhere in the world, so Vancouver and Amsterdam. Yeah. You never know. It's like a lot of conferences happening and sometimes people travel. And we started a new podcast, and then Cheuk is going to explain.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we started PyPodcast and what we want to do. So I think Tereza already mentioned a little bit about the situation that we're in our community, and there's a will, there's a way. So how can we I would emphasize on trying, to hopefully improve it. And so what happened is that one year, actually specifically last year in PyCon US, while I see that there are other podcast creators going around and inviting people that like they can interview, again, I realized that most people that they invite for interviews for the podcast are male. So I was like, no. And then I just find Georgie in the, she was helping out in PyCon US, so she was in the staff room, so it's very easy to get her. So I get her, and it's like, Georgie, I think we need to do something. Like, let's do a podcast. And then Georgie recommended me to get in touch with Tereza and Marietta, so we started this together. And we have to come up with a name, right? So I think, developer can relate because naming things are hard. So we kind of brainstorm a little bit. We try to play with puns. Like we all love puns. PyPodcast is kind of a pun. It's like it originated as a typo that Marietta made of like podcasts become podcasts. So that's why we call ourselves PyPodcasts. And so we are PyPodcasts. And the series that we are making is called The Hidden Figures of Python. So who have watched a movie, The Hidden Figures? Yay! So in the movie, it's about like 3 black women who contribute a lot in NASA in the kind of space mission as actually someone who were at that time called computers, like people who calculate, who are mathematician, experts in mathematics. So their contribution kind of like have been ignored in history, and we kind of think that it's kind of there are some reminiscence of that. Like we don't want this, like we have a lot of great women in the community that contribute to the community either in like technical way or non-technical way. We don't want their contribution to be hidden. We want them to be known. So that's why we kind of use that as a name for our series of podcasts. So there's a lot of work of doing that. We all we doesn't get paid. Well, luckily we got the PSF to give us some grants but that's a small amount that's only used. You can see from our blog post about how we use the money. We only use it mainly just to operate the podcast. We don't get paid. We are all volunteers, the 4 of us. So, but there's a lot of work. I can explain a little bit about how we create our episodes, and it's actually a very long, you can see there's a lot of process here. So first of all, we have to think of who we want to invite. Again, we want to find the hidden figures. Luckily, being PyLadies and women in the Python community, we have a lot of connections, but we want to try to be more specific, finding underrepresented folks who are actually not that well known. We know a lot of amazing women. They go sometimes they got invited as keynote, or sometimes they go speak at conferences. But we want to find those who are we know that they are great, but they are just maybe a little bit shy, or their own situation doesn't allow them to travel around and show themselves. We want to showcase them. So that's why we are always looking for these amazing people to invite as our guest. So after that, like, of course, we have to find out how to, like, connect to them, how to talk to them. So, like, some of them, like, is our personal, like, we have personal kind of connection with them. So we find the email, we send them an email for invite. Hopefully they will agree that, like, okay, they agree on, like, being interviewed and on the podcast. Sometimes this can be a scary thing. Some people don't want to, be talking about what they do. I think that's a very common thing for, women in tech. That's like, we don't like bragging about our achievements, but we want to change that. So that's why we are there to help them, to give them a space to talk about what they do for the community. And then we have to book a time to check do the technical check, whether they have a good, like, microphone at home, or whether they have a good webcam. Is the camera working? Is the internet working? So it's actually quite hard, because to book a time that, like, the host and the guest can sit together, kind of like including some group scheduling, and, like, Tereza and I and, like, the rest of the team, we are all very busy. We travel around, we, like, go to different conferences, we have our full-time job, and, it's very hard to, like, schedule a time. And also we are in different time zones, like, Marietta is in Vancouver, and, like, some of us are in Europe, and, it's very hard to schedule a time that we can be, like, with the guests, like, at the same time. And also booking a time to record. So we figured out at the end we use shall we mention that, or just like a technology that we can make the group booking?
We're just using
Calendly. So that's what we use. Not sponsored. So yeah, but if Calendly, if you heard it, if you want to sponsor us, please. Okay. So and then after we record, and then we have to do some editing. That would be, Georgie is, like, volunteer herself to be the editor. She did an amazing job of this. And then Marietta will add the subtitle, like that again, like, thank you for people being, like, volunteer themselves. So Marietta was like, I can be the release manager of the episode. And there's a lot of work adding subtitles, and then, like, coordinate with the PSF staff, because we will upload our trailer and episode on the PSF YouTube. So you can watch it there now if you want to, see our faces. If you don't want to see our face, you can kind of find our podcast in your favorite podcast, software, like Spotify, like those kind of things. So you can find us, like, hear our voice and our guest voice, and, like, so you can find us there. Usually we would have the trailer out a week before the actual episode is out. So, but we will also promote on social media. So if you haven't done it, follow us on social media. We are on Twitter, we are on LinkedIn. So yeah, please follow us. So far, so what can you watch today? So we have 4 episodes that's out today. The 5th episode, which is episode 4, because we are, like, start from 0. It's like Python list. We start from 0. So the 4th one is coming soon. We have recorded it. I will give you a little bit of spoiler about it. But first of all, the first episode, episode 0, is just the 4 of us. We're just talking about, like, what we're going to do in this podcast series. And then the first episode, we have Joanna Jablonski. Sorry, I'm very bad with names. She is great. She is actually contribute a lot to the CPython documentation. She started the editorial group, and then she also have a PEP that has written about the documentation of Python. She's also working as the chief editor in Real Python. So amazing woman. You should listen to that episode. Then next we have Carolina Ladino, and she is based in Colombia. She work, kind of leading the PyLadies Colombia, and contribute a lot to also PyCon Colombia. I met her in person last year. Again, like, great woman in tech. You should listen to her. And then we have the latest episode. We have Vicky Tamali, and she is also, like, contribute a lot in the PyLadies chapter in Ireland. She also helped to start PyCon Ireland, like, trying to, like, bring EuroPython to Ireland. And finally, we have EuroPython in Ireland a few years ago. So yeah, Vicky, she is still, like, contributing a lot. So please listen to the episode. And last, spoiler for the latest episode that's coming out soon, episode 4, we have an amazing guest from Denmark. She actually maintained a Python library called PyPanDoc, and she also contributed to poetry, but there's also something special about her. You will find out when you see the episode coming out. So she have really like special experience that, I can't imagine. So please look forward to the episode. So, okay, so that's the advertisement. So last, I want to ask you to do something. If you really like what we have just showed you, if you really want to support us, to really want to help the diversity and inclusion effort in the community, this is what you can do. Of course, like listen to our podcast, listen to the story of our guests, and share them. Sharing them is important. That's why we do the podcast. We want to show these women and their experience and their contribution to the community. We want more people to know. I have sometimes talked with organizers, and they say, oh, it's so hard to find female speaker. It's so hard to find female keynote speaker. Well, there are a lot of women out there. It's just that they don't know them. I don't know why, but yet. They don't know them yet. And I don't know like why this is the case, but we can solve that out. Like we can tell people like, oh, if you're looking for a female speaker, I have a suggestion for you. Oh, if you're struggling to find a female keynote, I know someone. And then you can, help. You can become an ally. You can kind of make space around you and welcome people who are underrepresented. That's why like panels always try to not have what we call manos, which is all male panel. Try to make space, like give some seat. Like, oh, we have like a panel of like 4 panelists. Give at least half of the seat to maybe someone underrepresented. Make space for diversity. Remember we talked about the Pac-Man rule in the opening? Make space. Give them a chance to talk. There's actually statistics saying that like women got interrupted more in a meeting. So did you realize that? Have you ever realized that? I have a friend who told me he didn't believe it until in one meeting he do an experiment. He shut up and just observe. And he also agreed that women get interrupted more often than men. So if you want to be our ally, maybe be more conscious. Sometimes I know it's not your intention, but sometimes this is a subconscious thing. Be more careful, be more conscious. We are all biased. I am biased too, you are biased, but realize that we are all human beings, we are all biased, and be careful and be conscious to fix it. This is what we should do. This is what we can try to solve the problem. I know the problem is very hard to solve. Like I have a friend who told me like that has been like decades and she has been like trying everything and it's like it seems like there's nothing that's like improving. But I tell her, you know what, if you do nothing, it will just get worse. So just keep trying, don't give up. And this is what we want to tell you, and this is, the first one, pypodcast.live is our website, and also that's an email, meow@pypodcast.live. We are also on Twitter. You can just look for PyPodcast, and on LinkedIn, follow us, and tell your friend, tell the world that there's like a podcast that's a little bit different from your typical podcast out there, and thank you very much for coming to this talk. Thank you.
Thank you for your talk. If you have any questions, just write them down at Slido. I have now just one question for you. How do you find your guests? What criteria do you follow to choose a guest?
You just said.
Yeah, so do you want to?
I can repeat what it is. We are using currently our network, so it's quite extensive.
So how to find the guest?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, how to find the guest? Again, like we use our personal connection. So it's mainly our personal connection, and then also we are very conscious that we want to try to find first of all, they have to be underrepresented. So far, we only have women because like we are 4 women and we know a lot of women. So, but we will have more diversity soon. Keep working, keep improving. But first of all, they're underrepresented, and the second is that we want to kind of choose those who are less visible. Like if someone, we know a lot of amazing women, right? Like they may be giving a keynote at PyCon US, they may be like.
So we are not going to be the podcast.
So sorry, I can't invite you if you are like amazing and give a keynote already and like, everybody knows you and everybody loves you but sorry, like you're not hidden. So we are trying to find like people, we think that also deserve some spotlight and. Yeah. Give them a space to show themselves.
And we also have like nominations, so anybody can write us an email. If you know somebody we don't know, because obviously we don't really know everybody yet, you can send us an email and say, I have a colleague, she's great, they're doing amazing things, and they maybe should be there. So. Yeah.
Next question about nominating people. If a potential guest are hesitant to speak, how do you convince or encourage them?
Well, we give examples, and we basically say that everybody has complete freedom on what they decide to share with the world. So it's, you want to talk about like work stuff, you don't want to talk about work stuff. Everybody gets to review the episode once we have it to give feedback. So far, everybody, so unlike what we heard originally when we shared our numbers to the podcasts, more manly podcast, was that we invited women, but nobody wanted to come. This has not yet happened to us. So I think everybody who we invited is like, oh, that's cool. And I mean, it's going to be, we have a very inclusive process.
I want to add a little bit, because like in the production process, I think I kind of go over like, just like very briefly, I haven't talked about all these details. So before, like when we have the tech check with the guests, like we would discuss with them like what they want to talk about, because we want to make sure the guests feel comfortable when they are like, in our episode. We understand that for us underrepresented folks, they may be feeling like, oh, a lot of pressure and a lot of like, is fear that like, oh, putting themselves out there, will that get a backfire or things like that. So we would make sure that they're okay with the question that we were asking. We'll also like after the editing, we'll like ask them, or like even after the recording, we ask them like, oh, is there anything, if you think of afterwards that you want to edit out, let us know. We are happy to do that. That's why we don't do live stream. Like that's why we like record and do the editing, so they can check whether it's something that they want to share before we publish it out there. So so we do a lot of effort to make sure that it's welcoming and comfortable for the guest. As Tereza said, so far nobody actually say no. We have some guests that saying like, oh, maybe later. But again, like we don't force anybody. We make sure that it's a very, like beneficial process for them as well. Yeah.
Do you have a donations page?
Oh.
It's complicated. I think currently we have the funding from PSF, and we have to think about how we do with the donations so that we stay legal.
Yeah. So.
It's like whenever there's money involved, it becomes a bureaucracy thing, and then you have to have a country and you have to have a thing. So
talk to us afterward, or donate to the PSF or the PyLadies, and then just indirectly support us.
Yeah, exactly. That's also.
What did you learn since starting podcasting?
Oh, I was very fascinating about all the hobbies our guests are having. I was like, wow, it's like when we get like in our podcast, we're humans, right? And it turns out that all the people that we've invited are just like us. We all have 48-hour days. Because you have to work, and then you do volunteering, and then you do community work, and then you kind of work a little bit more, and then you also have family, and then, so we all have very long days, and that was very fun. And apparently, you don't have a 48-hour day? Not yet. Anyways, so we are all very busy, and then we also have hobbies, and we're like all super, super faceted, and that's so beautiful to see that we can have, such colorful lives, and nobody's boring yet.
There is not a question, but thanks. I just read it out. Thank you so much for doing this and supporting our community to be a better place. With a heart.
Thank you.
maybe I have a little question for you. How long is one episode airing? Because I'm commuting like an hour to my workplace. Is it?
We try to get it like 30 minutes,
Yeah, around half an hour.
and sometimes we struggle with that, so I think we have a couple of episodes that are 40 minutes.
Too much content.
Yeah, as I said, we like, who here is only doing one thing in their lives? You know, like it's, yeah, once you start, you get
30
down
to 40 minutes.
30 to 40 minutes, yeah.
I think last question. When researching, are the majority of podcast hosts male, or are they mixed groups of podcast hosts?
So for
Thank you. The hosts were male, yeah.
Most are male.
The hosts.
the host, yeah, I'm not sure. But
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the
But-
statistic for the guest. Yeah.
We looked at but the people we interacted with were male. Because before sharing this, we reached out to every of those podcasts, and we informed them before that we are going to talk about their statistics out. So,
Okay, thank you for answering all our questions. Thank you for your talk and the
yeah.
whole presentation.
And we would like to thank very much to the speaker that was actually scheduled to give a talk now and is going to now give a talk on Wednesday. So please go to their talk.
Yeah.
Do you know who
We
it
have a
is?
last-minute schedule change.
I think it's not on Wednesday, but
Tomorrow.
shifted into evening.
In the evening. Please find out which talk is that. You will have to do a little bit of
It's
grabbing.
the last slot.
Yeah, be there. Yeah.
Thank you.